What's up guys, it's me Aloy, and today I'm bringing you an update from a Whirlwind build guide for Season 14. Whirlwind is still one of, if not the best builds for Barbarian, and generally speaking, right? Sure, it is like maybe 4 or 5 pits behind some other Barbarian builds like Charge and Rend, which already expected them to be slightly stronger, right? Because damage over time is quite good this season for Barb, but it is still incredibly tanky because we're running Selig, right? It's incredibly fast. The playability, it's the best, right? It's Whirlwind, and it can still one-shot bosses. So, it is what it is, right? As long as Whirlwind has damage, it always ends up being the best build, because, well, everything else is omega good on Whirlwind. Like, I've been able to do 135, push 135, right? And granted, I'm on Soul Self-Found, right? If you are on trade and you actually trade for a year, you'll potentially go even higher. I almost got 125 on farm, almost, not quite there. Like, I'm not quite one-shotting them just yet, but again, if you actually are on trade and you can get better gear, you can easily get even better than that, right? But yeah, Whirlwind is just incredibly good. So before we actually go anywhere, let's just talk about how the build, the general stuff about the build. So of course we're Selig build. This means we don't want any life whatsoever, right? No life whatsoever. We avoid it as much as we can on the Paragon. We avoid it anywhere else. Gear, charms, transfigurations, anywhere, don't take any life, okay? That's a big important one. Another big important thing here on the build is T-Bolts. T-Bolts is incredibly good. The 50% primary resource, so Fury, right, it gives you, is what keeps you alive on the Selig setup. Selig got kinda nerfed, not kinda, it got really nerfed, and you no longer gain a lot of resource just by getting hit. And T-Bolts just fixes that for you, right? T-Bolts is incredibly good, incredibly strong. Now, for it to work, you do need to be unstoppable. And you do that by having 100% uptime on our Wrath of Berserker. Wrath of Berserker, again, last season it was not good, this season they buffed it, and it's incredibly strong now. And we are trying to get 100% uptime on it. To do it, you need to have around 35-second cooldown in town and below 30-second cooldown outside of town. The reason you have different cooldown inside of town and outside, it's because Tuskhelm is not being applied right now, neither is my Charms here, right? The 10-second effect there, it's not being applied. Once it is, it becomes like it goes down, right? We also, and you might think, yeah, but like 30 seconds is not good enough, right? Because at most you can only get 21 seconds duration Wrath of Berserker. Well, we're also running shouts, which also get the cooldown reduced outside of town, right? Together here with our lovely, where is it? Our lovely Martial Glyph here, right? Martial Glyph, just together with these two shouts, sadly it doesn't work on Rallying Cry, but there's just these two shouts alone will reduce the cooldown every rotation. It will reduce 8 to 10 seconds, right? Which is more than enough. Sorry, no, 12 to 10 seconds, because it's 2 seconds per shout, right? So that just brings it down all that you need, and it's just omega good to be playing with Wrath of Berserker. Now, before we go into the gear section, we do a deep dive into the gear and all of that, I do want to talk about some of the bugs that are going on currently on Whirlwind. They are the reasons I changed a lot of stuff on the build currently. If you don't care about that and just want to see the changes, I'm gonna have timestamps down below that you can jump to. So starting off on aspects. Here, walloping is not actually working on Dust Devils. It is working on Whirlwind, just not working on Dust Devils, right? I don't 100% know why, but it is what it is, right? Warpath. Warpath was an alternative I considered to walloping, right? It's decent. You would need to take the overpower node on Wrath of Berserker if you want to run this. I don't think it's, first of all, I don't think it's worth it. And then there's another weird bug here. Granted, it's a very minor bug, because in actual gameplay, you'll rarely affected by it. So what's happening is that it's snapshotting the effect, okay? Both negative and positively. So if you start spinning without any overpowered charges, even if you gain them after while spinning, you will not benefit from the Warpath, okay? Same thing happens, the opposite happens on the opposite side, right? if you're already spinning with overpowered charges and the warpath is online, and you just lose your overpowered charges over time, right? Even when you're zeroed out, you will still keep the damage bonus until you stop channeling. I also think there's some other weird shenanigans going on warpath, but regardless, I'm not running it anyway because I'm just running elements because it just doesn't have any issues and I don't have to run the overpower stuff and then have to, you know, fix for the cooldown. Now, another bug that's going on. Okay, no, actually, before we cover the bug, let's talk about Challenging Shout. Challenging Shout, the 20% that you see there against burning enemies, was not working last season, and as far as I was able to tell, there was nothing specifically talking about the 20% actually working now for other skills, but it is. It's working for other skills now, so I changed it. Of course, this is a very big damage. It's a 20%. It's decently big damage buff, right? It's very nice. Now, when it comes to other bugs, well, as you might see here, if you go here to our build guide over here, as you can see up here, I talk about walloping and also talk about techniques. So if you want to have a deep dive over here, I have here on the FAQ, as you can see. Granted, I do want to take, throw a pinch of salt in here. Some of these things are incredibly weird to test, especially what's going on with the polearm. So I'm not 100%, like, I'm 99.9% certain on all of this, right? But, I'm the only one testing it. Other people testing would help as well. Especially this polearm here. I only noticed it was actually kind of working on Whirlwind, but not really, but kind of working because someone brought it up to my attention as well. Like this one especially, it's incredibly buggy. So first of all, 200 mace only works on Whirlwind, but not the stables. We're gonna jump polearm a bit. 200x, damage does not work on either. Now, the damage, as you can see, the other aspect that's not working as well is the vulnerable one. I'm not 100% certain, like the crit chance, I'm 100% certain the damage here is a bit wonky, because I also have to proc vulnerable, and that could just have some other bugs, right? Whatever. Generally, you're not running 200x anyway, whatever, right? 200 sword applies bleed with Whirlwind, not the dust devils. But this is actually the one I'm choosing to run, even though some others do apply the damage, simply because we get benefits from the, the additives we have on Blood Rage, the damage to bleeding enemies, that we just accidentally take because we are taking Berserking. Well, now we get to benefit from them, I guess. And since I was so desperate, I even tried the 100 mace and discovered it only works on Whirlwind and not the stables. There's an embed bug here. I'll need a... Maybe if I reload we'll fix it. Let's see. Yeah, it's fixed. Okay. Yeah, it's only working on Whirlwind, not the stables. Now, when it comes to polearm technically is working on Whirlwind and not working on dust devils. As you can see, never works for dust devils. The thing is, it works for Whirlwind when you have no gear and no perk, and no tornado perk. If you put tornado perk on, it only works on the initial wind-up of Whirlwind. So the first 0.5 seconds or something, it only works there, and then it drops off for some reason. I also noticed it was happening with aspects like anger management. I don't know if it's just anger management or if other aspects are also doing this. I didn't end up testing further because since it already doesn't work with Tornado, ultimately it doesn't matter, right? So essentially for actual gameplay, polearm is not working, okay, at all for actual gameplay, because you do want to channel Whirlwind to maximize your damage, and if you're just spamming it to benefit from the 15%, especially since it would only work on Whirlwind itself, it's just not worth it, right? Now, actually jumping into the gear section here. So starting off, we talked about this Selig. Starting off on the Mythics, right? Selig, incredibly good. Makes you incredibly tanky. It makes your resource, doubles your resource, and makes your resource be your HP pool, basically. So as long as you don't run out of resource, you never die. And one thing, resource is actually much easier to generate than life for barbarians. So at least on a lot of builds. So it's just incredibly good. Now, one thing to note that it's not written on the Selig, but the less life you have with Selig, the less damage you take. So that's why you don't want life anywhere. It's not written here, but that's just kind of how it works behind the scenes. So make sure to avoid life everywhere. Like we talked about earlier, avoid it as much as you can on the Paragon board, avoid it on all your pieces of gear. For example, even Tuskhelm that it rolls with life and T-Bolts, you have to roll the life away to use it on a Selig build, right? Also avoid it on Transfigurations, on your Charms, everywhere, right? You don't want life at all. Now, we also have Grandfather. Grandfather, I currently have one over here, right? There we go. I have a really good one over here. Sadly, it's crafted, and there's a crafted limit right now, so I can only run Selig. Grandfather is something that you really want to run if you happen to have one that's not crafted. Selig, once you get the Ramaladnis, the mythical Ramaladnis, and you have more than enough damage for T12, Selig is definitely the priority, because it just gives you, not only are you tankier, Selig also has a hidden effect that normally when you get hit, it stops portal, it stops interaction with chests and all of that. On the Selig setup, it doesn't. So it also has that quality of life, which is amazing, especially since, you know, 50% of our time is Altides now. So it's incredibly good there. You can TP to town easily, you can open chests easily, and it's incredibly good, right? But yeah, Grandfather, if you haven't run it, if you don't, we're gonna go over what I'm doing instead. Starless is another really powerful mythic. It's okay. It's a good mythic. The thing with Starless is, while Grandfather and Selig, you can run with suboptimal stats, as long as they have like 2 or 3 good stats, they're worth running, right? So, Starless, not so much. Starless is that, even with perfect stats, is actually slightly less damage than a Legendary Ring. The reason I would recommend running it is because it makes you tankier. Since you actually, you know, spend less resource for your skills, for Rama, for everything like that, you get a lot more resource, which is your basically your HP regen, kinda, right, in this build. You get a lot more of that going into not being spent to upkeep your Whirlwind, your Rama, all of that, right? That being said, most people, even myself, even after the patch in 4 days, I'm probably still gonna be running Legendary because I doubt I'll find a Starless with perfect stats, right? It is what it is, and the Legendary is also much easier for you to get with 1, 2, or 3 GAs, right? Especially if you're doing trade. Now, when it comes to uniques, starting off Rama. This is the only one that you really want to have as a mythic. It's the most important one to have as a mythic. The stats generally do not fluctuate too much, right? And like normally you can easily get a Rama with 3 good stats, and that's more than, even if you're missing physical damage, it's more than good enough. That's 0.65, especially since we're running Selig, is really important. The other ones, like you can see here, for example, a T-Bolt, I have perfect stats on this T-Bolt. I also got lucky with the Transfiguration there on the crit chance. It's much more important to have these uniques with the perfect stats than it is to have them as mythics, and potentially even GAs, like for example on Gords, although mine doesn't have GA, right? But it's much better, for example, to have a Gord with good stats than it is to have a Gords mythic with bad stats, right? Same thing for the Tuskhelm over here, right? It's much better. I actually have a mythic. I dropped 2 mythics Tuskhelm. Sadly, they have bad stats, so it is what it is. You're better off just running good stats on the Tuskhelm, right? Now, of course, as we talked about, we also have potentially Reservoir Gath here. This is something you see some people talking about. Generally speaking, for 99.9% of people, running Reservoir Gath is kind of bait. The thing Reservoir Gath gives you is that it solves a lot of the cooldown issues, hypothetically speaking, which means you can, you know, remove some of these cooldown rolls and masterworks and potentially get crit damage, put the masterwork on vulnerable, and that will increase your damage. Now, this works on situations like pushing. If you're pushing for like the top leaderboards, right, you do want to run Reservoir Gath. You will be squishier, but you can still kind of survive. You need to play smart, right? You're not as tanky as if you're running something like Evelyn Strength, right? But, you know, it does work, and if your goal is to push for the top spots on the leaderboard, definitely try to... It's quite simple, you just run Reservoir Gath with the same stats you want on this chest, right? And then you just remove as much cooldown as you can while still having 100% uptime on Wrath of the Berserker, right? And one thing as well, the way Reservoir Gath works is not necessarily what it seems. It actually works as cooldown haste. So it actually couples really well with cooldown, because what it makes is it makes your cooldowns tick faster. It doesn't actually reduce your cooldowns by 1 second, it makes them tick faster during that 1 second, assuming you applied some sort of damage over time, right? You apply damage over time, and during the next second, your cooldowns tick 60 or 72% faster, right? If you have the Mythic. That's how it actually works. I know it's a bit confusing, but the issue with that, right, is if you're one-shotting a boss, you get that tick for 1 second, and then your cooldown is still omega high, and whenever you summon the next boss, you don't have your cooldowns. Granted, it doesn't matter too much, but generally speaking, that's kind of what happens with this setup. You have cooldowns whenever you are constantly active in combat, aka pit, and pit pushing or tower pushing, right? But whenever you're actually doing general content, your cooldowns will be much lower, because you'll not always be applying the damage. A lot of times you're just traveling, especially if you're doing like Nightmare Dungeons, a lot of that, like a lot of times just traveling. That being said, I don't recommend it for anyone unless you're pushing. As you can see, if you go here over to our guide here, I do talk about it. I don't flat out put it here, but I do talk about it here, down here, because for most people the push setup is to level glyphs. And even then, again, until you start getting a good T-Bolts, a good Tascam and all of that with good stats, you'll be quite squishy, and I'd rather you can actually run the pits without constantly dying, right? Because again, you need to play smart, you need to have good gear, and most people want to push it up to actual level glyphs, right? So that's kind of my 2 cents over there. The other aspect we're running, of course, is going to be anger management, really good over here. You either run anger management or what's this aspect? I always forget the name of this aspect over here. What's its name again? Battle Mad, right? But yeah, Battle Mad, right? You run whichever one you get on the amulet, you put the other one on the boots and vice versa, right? That's fine. When it comes to our offensive, so on the two-hander, of course, we want the channeling, right? Channeling, incredibly good. We always wanted it on the two-hander. God damn, I can't speak today. Crushing on the other two-hander. Now, if you have Grandfather, of course, you're going to be moving Crushing somewhere else, and you're going to be dropping elements here, right? But currently, I don't have it. It is what it is. One thing that I do want to mention, since we're talking about this, when you don't have Grandfather, you have to compensate for it with a bunch of crit chance, right? Once you have Grandfather, you can start swapping some of these crit chance to attack speed to try and hit another attack speed breakpoint. And if you don't know the attack speed breakpoints, they are also conveniently here in the FAQ, as you can see, thanks to Icy Troll, by the way, is the one doing all this work. This is not me, okay? The one you care about, even did the ones for all of this, for the Flays, right? Because the Flays are 1.2 attack speed, even did all of those. But yeah, for the Mace, this is the one you care about. This is the attack speed. You'll likely easily reach 67, and on the push setup, you eventually want to go up to this 105.3. Currently, on this setup here, since I actually got lucky with this transfiguration here, I'm actually on the 105, but generally speaking, on this setup, you'll actually be more towards like a 78.3, maybe a 67.2. It just depends on your gear, right? Try, again, don't go attack speed breakpoints. Attack speed only matters if you actually hit the breakpoint, okay? If you can't hit the breakpoint, maybe move a masterwork elsewhere, right? And maximize your damage that way. Now, other aspects here, we're running Edge Master and we're running Heavy Hitting. Those are both really good aspects. If you end up getting a really goated Starless and you want to run it, drop Edge Masters, right? First of all, you drop Elemental Fate for Grandfather. Second of all, Edge Master for Starless if you get it. The stats are exactly the same, right? You can see here. One thing I do want to point out, as you can see, I have Lucky Hit resource on one of the jewelry. It doesn't matter which one, but you do want it on one of them, especially if you're running with Grandfather. The reason is, currently I already have some here, but on Soul League, this is just another way for you to regen HP, right? Especially if you're pushing, especially if you're running Rage of Argath, it really helps getting that extra resource to not die. And it's just a form of regen. You can technically drop this and go for cooldown, but you potentially be a bit squishy, right? It's up to you. Now, when it comes to runes here, first of all, we have Gar. The reason I'm running Gar, of course, I don't have Grandfather, so I have to make up the crit chance somehow. I'm doing it with Gar, and of course, if you have Grandfather, put Kel here, the one that gives you the Paladin Rallying Cry, just for additional movement speed. That's literally it, okay? The other one we are running is Bakja. Bakja, insane movement speed, right? Together with Leap over here, insane movement speed. It's incredible, not movement speed, but movement, right? Because you can just teleport over chasms, over, you know, rifts, whatever, right? You can just teleport everywhere. It's really fast as well, together with going over 300% movement speed. This build is ridiculously fast once you master the use of Ja and Leap. Leap especially. I still find myself sometimes leaping into walls because I'm not too used to it yet, but once you actually master it, you'll be flying across, right? Probably faster than a Thork this season. So there's that. Anyway, going over the charms real quick here. You want to be running the Crucible set, right? You also, on the seal here, ideally you want crit damage and damage while berserking with the Crucible set. Again, I'm running solo self-found, I'm very limited here, and the reason I'm running critical strike chance here is because, again, I don't have Grandfather, so I'm making up for that. When it comes to the unique one, you're gonna be running Endurance Fate. Endurance Fate, and I know, this is crazy for solo self-found, I know, I actually dropped this from a butcher. Surprisingly, but anyway, incredibly goated, I know, incredibly lucky here. But yeah, Endurance Fate with Salig is incredibly good because one of the issues Salig has is spiky damage. Salig is incredibly good with damage over time. Spiky damage is where it gets a bit scary, and Endurance Fate takes care of it and also provides 20% damage reduction. Alternatively, if you want more damage, you can run Fists of Fate, but keep in mind you'll be a bit squishier if you do that, and generally speaking I would not recommend it because Whirlwind just adds a lot of damage regardless, right? When it comes to the charms, you're looking for two of them, where do I have? Yeah, two of them with resource, and the rest should be martial skills. I do need to roll these things, I do need to get GA martial skills, I know. I'll get around to it eventually, right? I can't buy them, so I have to roll them myself. But yeah, that's the setup we're running here. When it comes to our skills here, so of course, Whirlwind, we're taking the Dust Devils, of course, biggest damage. Cost damage bonus, we can easily handle the increased cost, and it's a 40% multi-big, and of course, channeling damage bonus up to 25% more damage, incredibly good. Now, when it comes to our shout, starting off with Rallying Cry, this is where you'll dump the rest of your points, right? It's not the one you want to maximize the most, but it is where you'll dump the rest of your points. So starting off, 45, this is the main way you get 45 to benefit from things like crushing and all of that, right? You don't really need duration, you can, like with the league and all the regen you have, you can easily cast it every 4 seconds and you're not even gonna get close to running out of resource, right? Of course, we're running Booming here for the increased resource generation, which increases survivability, and the increased movement speed, which can go over the movement speed cap, and that's how we can actually get close to 300, if not over 300 movement speed, right? On top of that, potency. This also increases the resource generation we get, and of course the movement speed we get from Rallying Cry, which incredibly good as well. Furry gain is potentially decent as well, but either or you'll be fine. When it comes to challenging shout, of course we changed from Brawl to Raging because this is actually working, and we're running Weaken for additional damage reduction because why not? We don't need the duration bonus because we have an insane cooldown, right? And we're actually running damage bonus here. This doesn't always work, right? But it's still very good against elites, right? I believe it doesn't work on bosses unless the bosses are staggered, apparently. I've not been able to fully test this myself, but that's what I've heard. So, and regardless, you're taking it anyway, it's just more damage against most enemies, right? When it comes to Warcry, so we're gonna take Mighty Roar, we don't care about the Berserking, but 10% increase the damage on the Warcry is very good. We are taking Ferocity. Now, Ferocity, like any attack speed source on Whirlwind, is snapshotable. This means if you start spinning without Ferocity stacks, you'll not actually benefit from the attack speed until you start spinning again. What this also means is if you get lucky and you proc Warcry and you also get Warcry proc from your charm, you'll instantly get 4 Ferocity stacks. You should stop spinning and start spinning, and you'll get the 20% increased attack speed from the Ferocity stacks, even if they fully drop off. As long as you keep channeling, you'll keep that attack speed, right? It is what it is. Again, it's one of those snapshots that's both good and bad, depending on the situation. You just gotta make sure you take advantage of the good, right? And avoid the bad. When it comes to the other one, we're taking duration here. For pushing, you will run the vulnerable one, but we're not pushing here, and increasing duration just better for more damage uptime, right? Now, leap here is, you can run leap, you can run iron skin, you can run anything here, but personally I prefer leap. Again, if you master the use of leap, especially with this node here, Earth Shatter, with the increased attack speed we have, you can get up to 4 leaps per cast. If you go super fast, like leap, right? You can get 4 of them. Right now, like 3 of them, you can reliably get. The 4th one, you have to be really fast with it, but it's incredibly good, right? Incredible mobility. I'm also taking this one because I guess this one is not needed, but it's just technically it's better survivability because you get resource, right? So I'm just taking it just because why not? I don't need damage. I don't need the point anywhere else, right? Now, when it comes to our ultimate, I'm taking, of course, increased duration to get the duration up to 19, right? Because it has a default of 40 seconds duration, 14 seconds duration, and this extends it to 19. Together with the duration bonus here, it goes up to 21, okay? Now, the one node that I'm taking here is Berserking. Berserking is not fully working, so the way it does work is that it technically multiplies your damage, multiplies the effect of Berserking, but you also have other things that give you effective Berserking, like our charms over here, right? Our charm here. And that does not work together with this, so it's not fully working, but it's still giving you roughly a 14% multiplier, and I feel it's better than going over here, right? Because I can get attack speed somewhere else, right? Attack speed is decent though with the research, and it's definitely decent. It's an option. It's also more defensive, supposedly, right? Because you have regen. So it's an option if you don't want to take this one and you're missing attack speed on your gear. Now, going over the Paragon over here. Starting off on the first board. Oh yeah, one thing I do want to point out, as you can see here, look at the ridiculous things I'm doing here, right? To avoid life. Right, I'm avoiding life over here as well, and this is the only 2 life nodes that you cannot avoid at all, okay? This ones you have to take, it is what it is, but you shouldn't take any more life on the Paragon board at all. Even this one that gives you resource, avoid it at all costs, okay? Now, on the first board, we're taking Challenger here, especially once I get a couple more Paragon points, I can start taking some strength and it's gonna be very nice. Other than that, here, on the Warbringer board is not necessarily a really good board, a really good legendary node, but since it actually has a decent amount of fury over here, and it also has 74 dexterity nodes around the glyph, it's really good if you're running things like Wrath, right? It's incredibly strong. Now, on the Carnage board here, of course, 15% increased damage and 15% attack speed, really nice. It also gives you a bit of free crit chance over here, which crit chance is very hard to come by this season. And of course, we're running Exploit here. If you're pushing, right, you swap this out for Imbeaver over here, and then you just run the node on the Warcry with an Ohm rune, right, to proc Warcry more often. But for the general setup, you want to run Exploit, because Exploit just going to be more than enough vulnerable for you, because everything nothing survives 3 seconds, right? The only thing that survives 3 seconds is Mephisto, and that's because he has multiple phases. Anything else doesn't survive, so you just run Exploit, and that will be all the vulnerable you will need, right? It's very good. Now, over here, Blood Rage. Blood Rage is incredibly good node. It's the biggest multiplier we have. Very good. Of course, we're running Twister here. The reason we run Twister on this board is it's the board that has the most strength, 115, right? It's incredibly good to run Twister here. And of course, as well, thanks to the technique we're running now, the two-handed sword, right? We also benefit because the polearm, if you skip that, polearm is not actually properly working. So we're just taking sword, because then we can also benefit from this additive damage to bleeding enemies, right? Over here, we also can take some extras. Once I have more Paragon points, I'll also take these other ones here, right? It's very nice. Now, going over here to the last board, this is the craziest one, right? As you can see, I avoid this life like the plague, and I just go all the way around. Now, Starting off, Flawless Technique is incredibly good. 50% multi with 5% crit chance, really amazing, right? Especially because, again, crit chance is very hard to come by. This is where we're running our Marshal. You just need to activate it, and it already does the job, right? We're also going over here. It gives you a bit of attack speed here, which is very nice. Other than that, just avoid life like the plague, right? Okay. Now, when it comes to our Mercenaries, I actually don't have them hired here because I have to remove them because I was testing stuff, right? The ones I recommend, they don't really matter too much, but the ones I recommend to take, it's coming here, hire right here, you go down this side here, you get a small multiplier here every time, it's very nice, and it also kind of gives you a shit dead with Bastion, kind of-ish. It's not quite a shit dead, but it's quite good still for survivability. And the other one we take is going to be here, Aldequin. Aldequin, it's for the Fields of Language. It's another damage reduction every now and again. You just put it, cast the player whenever the player casts any skill in combat, and it will just basically proc on cooldown, which is what you want, right? Other than that, that's kind of gonna be it. I don't think I'm missing anything, right? We talked about everything. Yeah, we talked about everything. So yeah, that's gonna be it for the build update here. We do this setup that I'm currently running right now. It is here. It's kind of we did talk about the grandfather and stuff like that. If I'm able to actually get grandfather, if I play long enough after the patch to get grandfather, I'll put another video guide out fully updating it. But currently you can actually go over here and you can see this is the setup I'm currently running right now, right? Because it is what it is. I don't have access to the other iconic mythics, but generally speaking, you do want to aim for this, especially after the patch in 3 or 4 days. You do want to aim for this whenever you can, right? But hey guys, thanks for watching. If you have any questions, as always, leave them down below. I do want to say I think there's another bug on Whirlwind that's randomly giving you, like, not randomly, I just can't figure out what's blocking it. Like, on certain setups, it's giving you like a 2.5 multiplier. Basically 3 pit tiers or so. I don't know, there's a bunch of bugs. I'm still trying to figure them out. I'm doing my best, okay? It's hitting dummies really hits at your sanity. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys. As always, I'll be streaming potentially later today, as always on Twitch or here on YouTube if you want. And yeah, see you guys next time for more Whirlwind content. If I do end up playing a bit more, I might even make potentially a lance build guide. No promises there, okay? But yeah, if I stop playing Diablo 4, I'm probably gonna go over to play a bit of World of Warcraft, because I've been dying to get into it. And this season, I think we can all agree it is sadly not as good as last season. But I do want to point out something, right? The BlizzCon, right? The next season launches 2 days after BlizzCon. They have clearly timed this seasons. They made the last season, this one, shorter to be able to line up with BlizzCon, and they're clearly putting a lot of resources that are not going into this season into BlizzCon. So, you know, maybe coping, but we might see something big at BlizzCon. You know, if we see something big at BlizzCon, I will forgive them. I'll say, my bad, you know, it was worth the sacrifice, okay? If they don't, I'm gonna be, you know, a bit mad, but it is what it is. You know, as long as I can get like 2 weeks of fun out of Diablo, that's more than good enough for me. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. I'm not gonna ramble on any longer, and hope you enjoyed the build, and see you next time for more Whirlwind and generally Diablo 4 content. Bye bye.